Please welcome CEO of Women in Product, Elizabeth Ames.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Product Conference 2020. We made it. We're here. Wherever here is for each of you individually. And looking at the chat, it looks like we have people joining us from across the US and Canada, from the UK and Ireland, Israel and India. We are so glad you are here. Preparing for the conference this year has definitely been a journey. We know that all of you have faced challenges as well, whether it is learning how to be effective in your job while working remotely, or finding a new job in the face of a global pandemic. We know that many of you are juggling doing your job and helping your children or elderly relatives. But today, and for the next couple of days, this time is for you. You deserve it. The past 6 months have taught me 3 important lessons about building resilience. First, ask for help. You don't have to do it alone. We could never have delivered this conference without the support and participation of the amazing community that is Women in Product. Community members helped us develop the theme for the conference in each of the tracks, submitted over 280 proposals to speak at the conference. There were so many great ideas and talks. And while we couldn't include all of them during these 3 days, we will be bringing some of them to you via webinars and local chapter virtual events over the coming months. 57 community members helped us review every submission. 7 community leaders helped us put together each of the tracks to help you refine your product skills, lead through change, and drive your personal roadmap. We have 81 speakers over these 3 days, and 83 volunteers are supporting us and all of you over the next 3 days as chat monitors, Q&A moderators, and in other roles. I'm truly humbled by their contributions. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, our title sponsors, Facebook, Google, and PayPal. They have all been long-term supporters of Women in Product. We greatly appreciate their support for the conference, our community, and all of the work that we do. Our gold sponsor, Okta, thank you for joining us this year. We're delighted to have you here. And to all of our silver sponsors, thank you for being a part of our community. We could not do this without the support of these organizations. My second lesson is to take care of yourself. With so much to do and so many challenges, it's easy to forget about ourselves. Make sure to find the time because you too deserve it. And if you aren't well, it will be ever harder to support others. We hope this conference will provide an opportunity to focus on you and where you want your career to go and provide the inspiration and tools to get you there. And finally, surround yourself with people who want to see you thrive. This conference is filled with people who want you to succeed, who are rooting for you, and will help you. Make sure to take the time during this conference to reach out to others and to meet new people. It's a little harder to bump into someone in the hallway during a virtual conference, but there are several ways to make connections, including trying the networking mixer. To kick things off this morning, we're going to focus on building a career for yourself. We will hear from 3 women who have built wildly different careers, from starting up a shoe company to being SVP of product without ever working as a PM, to a more traditional pivot from engineering to product management. These women have taken risks and followed their passions. As product managers, we know that sometimes opportunities take us to places where we didn't originally plan to go. After all, most PMs didn't start with the intention of being product managers. Most of us found our way to product through other jobs. These women are inspiring examples of building a career for yourself. To get us started, I'd like to introduce Bianca Gates. Bianca is the CEO and co-founder of Birdies. In April of 2017, Bianca left her dream job at Facebook where she was part of the global marketing solutions team for US retail. A safe, well-paying job with all the perks and benefits that come with working at a major tech company. She stepped into a new role as CEO and co-founder of a startup focused on creating a comfortable and stylish slipper for home entertaining. For over 2 years, she had been working on making this idea a reality. She took a leap and is now building a whole new category of shoe, a stylish flat that is secretly a slipper. Our very own Anna Grace, Women in Product board member and director of artificial intelligence at Facebook, joins Bianca in conversation to see how she made that leap of faith to being a CEO and co-founder.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Anna Grace, and I'm a director in product management at Facebook, where I work on artificial intelligence for our commerce initiatives. I'm also a proud member of the board of directors for Women in Product. I'm thrilled that you've joined me today to meet the incredible Bianca Gates, the CEO and co-founder of Birdies, the company that created a new category of footwear with stylish flats that are secretly slippers. They have become the darling of shoe lovers around the world, and Meghan Markle herself is a fan, proving that they're the slippers that are made for a princess. Prior to Birdies, Bianca was a sales executive at Facebook and Instagram, where she consulted with retail executives on organizational transformation, helping them leverage new technology, social media, and mobile devices to scale their businesses. Welcome, Bianca. We can't wait to hear all about you and your incredible journey.
Thank you, Anna. It's just a pleasure to be here. And my heart is just swollen with love knowing that you're at Facebook, a company that I just loved being at for 6 years. I am a huge fan of mission-driven companies and what you guys continue to do there. I am your biggest fans, cheering you all on, and couldn't be more proud to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Well, we are so excited that you're here. So let's get started. How did all this happen? You were enjoying this really successful career at Facebook, and then what?
Oh my gosh. It's like, who could have predicted this? My parents are immigrants from South America, from Bolivia and Argentina, and they immigrated here after they got married. And I think just growing up here as the daughter of immigrants, for them, their dream was for me to have a good job, a good, strong 401k, and, just like this linear, positive life that they didn't really have down in Latin America. And when I called them up 5 years ago and said, I'm thinking about starting this like slipper company, of course, they were very supportive. But it wasn't until 2 years later that, I called them and I said, I think I'm leaving my big job at Facebook for this full time, where they were just like, oh my gosh, you've gone crazy. Like, let's take a step back. But I think going a little bit before that, yeah, like you said, I had the dream job at Facebook. I worked, my career in advertising sales. And in 2011, I was at Viacom as an advertising executive there. And I read Sheryl Sandberg's commencement speech that she gave at Barnard College, where she talks about leaning in and don't leave before you leave and find your passion. And that's going to drive you and keep you staying in your career. And as I was reading the transcript, I felt like she had written that directly for me. I was a new mom. I had a 1-year-old child. And I think this idea of, working hard for a paycheck after a certain while lost its appeal. And at that point, as a new mom, I wanted more out of life. I wanted more than just a paycheck. I had made enough, fortunately. I'm so grateful for that I could start to think about, my purpose and my passion and my legacy in life. And when I read that commencement speech, I just thought, you know what? I want to do more. And money at that point was not going to be the motivating factor for me. It was really to find purpose and to serve others. And I was a longtime avid user of the Facebook platform. I have a lot of family still in South America. And for us to be able to communicate free with relatives there was a game changer for us. And I loved it, sharing photos with them. And so, for me, it was a natural progression to wanting to work there. But I don't think I was a natural candidate for Facebook, just given my background in television and in advertising. But fortunately for me, after a 6-month interview process, they hired me. However, when I got the offer letter, it was the offer was to make $100,000 a year less. I was not making a ton of money outside, beyond that. So it was a big pay cut for myself and my family. And where I live in San Francisco, it would have meant a 3-hour-a-day commute to the office and back, in addition to a steep learning curve. And we knew that we wanted another child at the time. And so I think on paper, it was one of those crazy moments where we're like, what am I doing? Like, have I just lost my mind? But at the same time, I knew the trajectory of my career was not going to be very long if I was just focused on, making money without a purpose. And so I took the leap of faith. I accepted the offer. And I remember coming home after that, long, brutal commute with more energy, more enthusiasm for my family and for my life, that I just realized at that moment, working for a mission-driven company, and the mission, as you know, is to make the world more open and connected, made me feel like I had a purpose every day going to work. And so I thrived in that environment. And rather than coming home tired and exhausted, I had even more energy. And so I think, my zest for curiosity sort of was peaked while at Facebook. And so a few years into my career at Facebook, I continued to have this nagging footwear problem at home. We were entertaining friends and family. I had now 2 little kids, and we would ask people to remove their shoes upon entering the home. And it was always that moment where you're just panicked. Do I only have socks on, or I don't have a pedicure. What do I do? And it was awkward. And as, a person who was entertaining a lot, I would just pull out my pajama slippers, but they looked very silly with my outfit. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And so 5 years ago, my husband just looked at me and said, you've been talking about this social slipper problem for as long as I've known you, for about 10 years. Why don't you just go ahead and solve it once and for all? And I just remember looking at him like he was crazy. I don't design. I'm not a designer. I never went to fashion school. And I was like, how the heck am I going to make these shoes? But, it was at that moment where I just said, if not me, who? I've been looking for this for over a decade. So that night I put my kids to bed. I just went on Google and I just Googled how to make a shoe, how to make a slipper. And the journey for me started from there. This was back in February of 2015, 3 years into my career at Facebook. And 8 months later, we launched with a product.
That's incredible. So there you are, literally creating your own prototypes, and now you've got something to show for it. And then what happens?
Well, we started by going shopping and learning and observing what was out there on the market. And whenever we go somewhere or even Google searching slippers, we were sort of sent into the lingerie department. And so they were very much synonymous with pajamas, and shoes were very much synonymous with, outside. And so we started to cut up a bunch of shoes and sort of pulling together components and saying, if we could have the rubber sole for indoor traction and outdoor wearability, and a cushiony insole like what you'd find in a sneaker, but with the softness of a slipper, and a structure and the fashion of a shoe, if we could combine these materials together, this would be euphoria. This would be what I'm looking for. And so we spent months prototyping. And at that point, we kind of knew what we wanted it to look like and to be. And then the journey was, who's going to make this? And so without having any footwear connections, certainly not overseas, we just kept asking everybody we knew in our network, do you know anybody who's ever been in the footwear industry that can help us? And we ended up finding somebody who was a friend of a friend and connected us with one factory overseas. And we just said, that's good enough for us. And so we sent over the materials and they put the prototype together. And we just, as two busy working moms, we didn't have time or a lot of money to prototype and perfect the product. So our strategy was similar to what the strategy is at Facebook. Done is better than perfect. And we used that philosophy in building our product. And so we just said, yes, let's keep moving fast and moving forward with the prototype. Let's go into production. And the minimum quantity of shoes that we had to agree to and pay for were 1,800 pairs of shoes. And I'll never forget, 3 months after putting the purchase order in, my co-founder, Marissa, calls me and she says, you're never going to believe this. There's a big truck in front of my house. I cannot believe you gave them my home address. And they said they have our shoes. And I was like, oh my God, nobody told us they were in transit. Now what? And so she had her neighbors help her put the pallets of shoes into her garage. And then she was like, this is your problem, Bianca. You need to help sell these, figure this out. And it was that moment where I was like, oh my God, the product has landed. It's here. We have something to sell. Now what? And by the way, I don't want to lose my amazing job at Facebook over this. So do I do this on the down low? Am I able to have a side hustle company? Am I going to get fired from Facebook? And so I emailed Sheryl Sandberg, who, she was very supportive of women leaning in and women finding their passion. And I thought if anybody would get behind this, it would be Sheryl. And so I emailed her and I said, listen, I've sort of been moonlighting as this like slipper entrepreneur. Turns out the product has arrived. I don't have any money to market this or ways to sell it other than to personally post on my Facebook page that I have slipper shoes. Hopefully my friends will buy it. And she responded immediately, just so supportive and so complimentary. And so then I forwarded that email to my manager and I said, well, Sheryl's supportive, so I'm launching a business. And my manager, to be honest, was very supportive as well. And so we launched on November 5th, 2015 on our personal Facebook pages. We spent, I think, $30 on Shopify to pop open a website. And we had a little link there. Everything was shot on our iPhone. And we would just, take orders and we would package them up from our homes. And on my way to dropping off my kids in the morning to preschool, they would unload the shipment of shoes to send to customers. So we started very humbly. But a lot of the philosophies we learned at Facebook really resonated with me and was a lot of how we started to build Birdies in the early days.
And how did you make the decision to leave? What was that? How did that happen? Yeah.
So we launched in November of 2015. And to be honest, so my co-founder and I each put in $50,000, which was a lot of money for us. And it was either renovating my kitchen or starting this business. And I said, well, if this business takes off, I'll have another kitchen later. And so at that point, I think I could not believe we had product and that we were selling it. And I was like, you know what, this is crazy. Like, this is way too much. This started off as a fun idea. And now it's become a thing. And I don't think I can do this. Like, I am not a footwear person. I'm not an entrepreneur. I have a great job. I just wanted to sell 1,800 units to recoup our money and just get out. That was the strategy. Terrible strategy. So we started selling at trunk shows, and friends would have us over at their homes and invite their friends. And so, we would sell relatively modestly, but we were just trying to push product. And in February of 2016, an editor from the San Francisco Chronicle asked if she could write a full page story on this like social slipper. Like, it was just such a unique, wild idea. And when they would ask women, what do you wear when entertaining? They would all say either socks, frumpy slippers, or barefoot. And so she was like, I think there's something here. And so she wrote a story. It was a full page article. I'll never forget this. It came out on February 14th of 2016, Valentine's Day. But even more importantly, that drove so much in sales volume that day that the next day was an American holiday and we had the day off. And so I was able to drive to Sacramento to my co-founder's house and help ship hundreds of shoes that were sold because of that piece. And from then on, we just started to get more momentum, and celebrity stylists were reaching out to us to gift them to their celebrities. And so we thought, gosh, not only are we selling organically and we have fashionistas wanting to wear us, we started to realize maybe we're onto something. And then at the end of 2016, I celebrated my 5-year anniversary at Facebook. And as you know, and I hope they still do this, I received a sabbatical, a paid sabbatical. And so I decided to take that time and fully immerse myself into the shoe business to see if I do this 100%, will this business grow a lot more, or will it continue to sustain regardless of my input? And lo and behold, the business exploded that season. And I went back to work at Facebook in January of 2017. And I just thought, oh boy, we have a big problem here. Like, that was a lot of fun and awesome. But my job here is my identity, and my W-2, which my identity was wrapped around as well. And I thought, what do I do? And a few days later, I got an email from Andy Dunn, who's the co-founder and former CEO of Bonobos, a fashion company. And he wrote $100,000 in the subject line. And inside the email, it just said, I've been hearing about Birdies all over Manhattan. I want to write you a check for $100,000 to invest in your business. And I want to help you raise a seed round. And it was at that moment where I just sat back and I said, okay, we have traction. And now we have an industry insider offering to invest in our business and offering to introduce us to his network to find other investors. And I knew at that point I could not take somebody else's money unless I was 100% committed in it myself. So it was at that point where I just thought, if I take investors' money, I need to be doing this full time. So I thought about it, talked to my husband, and I ended up reaching out to Sheryl, who was very kind to see me, and we talked a little bit about it. And she said, you know what, this is going to be huge. We're cheering you on. And not that you need this, but we will hire you back. You've done amazing here. And so that was sort of the safety net I needed, and the encouragement, and also the data points to know that like maybe there's something bigger here, and I need to figure out what that looks like.
That is incredible. Wow. And then somehow a princess comes into your world. How did this
Yes.
happen?
It's nothing happens by accident, really. I mean, it's like you have to be like obsessed with understanding where it is you're trying to go and what you're trying to become. And in the early days, when I was at Facebook, I worked with retailers. So Gap Inc. was a client of mine, and I was helping them, figure out how to find their customers on a mobile device using, Facebook and leveraging Instagram. And in order to help them do that, I would sit in their marketing meetings, and I really wanted to understand their pain points and what they were talking about, so I could figure out what product then could help them scale. And in these marketing meetings, they would talk about their customer by name. Her name was Jenny, and she had an identity. She was a real person. She had, 2 kids. She was busy. She had a job. And so they wanted to service her and make her day more delightful and better. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. And in the meetings, they were saying Jenny is now, getting a little bit older. We want to now bring in next gen, is what they called her. And I thought to myself, well, who's our customer? If she had a name, what would it be, and what does she look like? And this was when we were still developing the product, and we really didn't have a name yet. And so my co-founder and I were talking, and we're like, okay, well, let's name her first. Like, what's a badass name where everybody wants to be around her? She's the hostess with the mostest, and she has a career, and she's busy, but it's not about her. It's about, serving others. And we fell in love with the name Birdie, because Birdie is like a badass name. Who doesn't want to be Birdie or be friends with Birdie? And then we started to identify her as a profile. And she's, again, like this like badass, simple, beautiful woman who cannot be typecasted as one type. She's, every woman. She's multifaceted. And so we fell in love with her, and we said, okay, well, if she were a celebrity, who would she be? And we went through names and names and names of celebrities. And then we came across Meghan Markle, who at the time was on, the show called Suits. She was not even dating Prince Harry yet. And we were like, this is Birdie. She's multidimensional. She's fascinating. And when you look at her style aesthetic, it's just jeans and a button down. I mean, kind of like what I'm wearing now, and a pair of loafers. And, she's gorgeous, but she's not fully done up. And we were like, this is Birdie. And so we decided to gift one of the 1,800 units that we had. We couldn't be gifting to a lot of people, to Meghan Markle. And a few weeks later, she started posting herself wearing us on her Instagram channels, and our business just ended up exploding organically. And then about a year and a half later, they announced that she's engaged to Prince Harry on Cyber Monday of all days. Talk about this like fairy dust. And the business exploded. And we were like, well, at that point, she's a princess. Why would she wear birdies? And she has since worn us as a Duchess. So we are very grateful to her and everything that she has done to support women, and women like myself with a dream and a vision. And we're just very grateful for her, and feel so lucky.
Amazing. So you know what? I cannot believe how time has flown. I could talk to you forever. This is so fascinating. We just have a couple of minutes left, literally. And with that time, we have an audience of people out there that have dreams as well. And I'd love to just maybe give you a moment to speak directly to them. And maybe, because this has been really kind of a fairy tale for you, I'm sure there was also tougher times. How would you encourage them to go after their dreams? And how would you encourage them when it gets tough?
Just do it. I cannot say that enough. We had no business strategy. We had no idea what we were doing. There was no background. We just started. Just start. Whatever idea you have, just start and continue to go. And when you hit a roadblock, find another way. Where there's a will, there's a way. I really believe that. And I've been living it. I had no background in any of this, and here we are today. So just start, just do it. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. We as women need to rally together. We can do this. Get out there and do it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Bianca. Super encouraging, incredible story. And we wish you just continued luck. Cannot wait to see what you're going to do next. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you. And I love everybody out there. Go women in product. Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you, Bianca and Anna. I loved hearing about Bianca's approach to risk. I think we all believe that we have to be real risk takers. I think her example shows that there are a variety of approaches to risk. It's not all or nothing. And really, don't we all want to be Birdie? Such a great name. Our next speaker, Laura Teklemarian, has, on the surface, traveled a much more traditional path from engineering into product leadership. Laura started her career as a software engineer after receiving technical degrees from UC Irvine and the Georgia Institute of Technology. She quickly pivoted from engineering to product roles, a path that both women and men often take. It's safe to say, though, that Laura's path was more unconventional than it may appear. Laura used her technical background to tackle product areas where women are less prevalent, like developer tools, and less welcomed, like gaming. But with each challenge, she has advanced and found her way within the industry, leading teams at Electronic Arts, Glue Mobile, and Warner Brothers Entertainment. Laura recently joined Netflix to lead product management for all of their animation products. It is particularly wonderful to have Laura speaking today. Way back at the first Women in Product conference, she was in the audience, yearning to learn more and build the career of her dreams.
Mommy, where does resilience come from? What is it really?
Great question. This is an answer that I have been searching for my entire career. I believe women need perspective, power, and possibility to gain the resilience needed to take today's world and mold it like clay to create the future that they want. First ingredient, the consciousness of perspective. Hello, it is an honor to be able to speak with you today. I am humbled by all the great leaders who have come before and that have demonstrated resilience. The 21st century, our world has been tested with a pandemic, climate change, distant learning, social unrest, and economic turmoil. A person can only take on so much. Psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Resilience is what gives people the strength to cope with hardship and stress. Experts believe that resilient individuals are better at being able to rebuild their lives after a difficult change, meaning the mental reservoir of strength that people are able to call on in times of need to carry them through without falling apart. I would like to tell you 3 stories which represent the ingredients of resilience. I was born in Oakland, California, and raised by a single mother with a sister. Looking back, I grew up in a lower income household, living paycheck to paycheck, just one step away from a financial crisis. My immigrant mother worked 12-hour days to provide for us without any help, without any praise. As I helped raise my younger sister, I'd wonder, would she ever stop working so hard? But she didn't. Even in the harshest of times when the creditors were calling, she always made sure we had a roof over our heads and a meal on the table. My mother's story is an example of resilience. Some people call it grit, determination, or inner willpower. For me, it was her perspective. My mother's toughness helped me understand that true privilege, it isn't a birthright, it's a perspective. Some of us have a single perspective. Some of us raised with many perspectives. I mean, one perspective is like shopping in a thrift store or yard sales, but knowing that it's not being poor, but an opportunity for treasure hunting for us as kids. Or a perspective with not having the money to go anywhere, but still being happy to spend time with those in your life. What about you? What kind of perspective were you privileged to have? What were you exposed to that shaped your perspective and gave you a specific privilege? What new perspective can you acquire to change your current privilege? My mother's privilege and perspective taught me that it's okay to learn new things, as you will gain a new perspective from it. Second ingredient, consciousness of power. As a kid, I watched my mother, and by watching, I learned a perspective. You see, as a child, I was fascinated by electronics. My mother would go to expensive neighborhoods, and I remember she purchased this VCR from a yard sale. She made such a fuss about how this was such a great find for her, so much so that the VCR intrigued me, and so I took it apart. But I was only 8 years old at the time, so you can probably guess what happened. I had no idea how to put that thing back together again. Instead of getting mad at me, my mother encouraged me to figure out, well, how are you going to put that back together again? And I used that encouragement as motivation. But in all seriousness, I think she just wanted her VCR back to watch a rerun of ABC News. This was the kind of kid I was. Matter of fact, I remember when the Laserdisc finally made it to my house after another trip to the estate yard sale. I said to myself, this big old thing, nobody wants this. I'm definitely stripping it down to the circuit board. I never put the VCR, the Laserdisc back together in working fashion. But what I eventually found out was that math and science were the key to understanding how these components worked. And I realized that I had a desire for electronics, which led me to playing video games with my friends on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I was fascinated by electronics so much so that I eventually asked my school office admin, where do I go to make electronics? The office admin pointed me to my school counselor, who then recommended electrical engineering. You see, the opportunity to have access to secondhand electronics and video games gave me the aspiration to want to build technology that could share content to the world. This eventually led me to the path of leading a gaming studio at Electronic Arts and Warner Brothers. So now, back to you. Whether you are trying to get into product management as a career switcher or trying to accelerate your career as an advancer, or even trying to be thoughtful and go beyond yourself as a motivator, true power doesn't come from resources. It comes from being resourceful. My mother never told me a simple no. She just said, hey, there's a barrier. You just need to figure out a way to overcome that barrier. Sometimes that barrier comes in the form of other people's perceptions and thoughts. Blow past them and just keep going. Don't let other people's visions of you or perceived limitations hold you back. And as long as you're banging on that door, keep banging, because somebody will eventually hear you and open that door. Third ingredient, consciousness of possibility. So let me fast forward decades later. My mother asked me, so what are you going to do? And what are you going to create this time? I was puzzled by her question because I realized my mother created a world of possibility for me. What does possibility look like in myself or in others? My final story. When I think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Hillary Clinton, or Michelle Obama, resilience is not foreign to them. Under high-pressure situations or difficulties, they all unlock the consciousness of reimagination of the world. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was mistreated and underestimated in law school and the professional world. But she used all of those barriers as fuel to get into the Supreme Court and fight for what she believed in. Hillary Clinton lost the presidency twice on an international stage, but she continues to be a public figure. Michelle Obama started on the south side of Chicago, took a pit stop at Princeton, and disembarked at the White House and enacted a world of change during her stay. I discovered a love for re-engineering after growing up without access to the world of tech gadgets. This altered the course of my life because I found a place where I could be creative and innovative in the STEM world. This may sound like everyone just working through hardship, but really, they're examples of women redefining possibility. So remember, imagination to see possibility is one of the most powerful forces in the human psyche. You can't be what you can't see. Imagination is the wind behind you when you're running in a marathon and you're starting to get tired. It's what keeps you going when things get hard. And so, just like so many people before us who have demonstrated resilience, my hope is that you expand your perspective in search of igniting the power within you to be resourceful, and you unlock your imagination to create new possibilities. Then you will have found resilience. Thank you all, as I'm humbled to be here speaking in front of you. Please enjoy the rest of the week, and remember, as you continue to work on products and service, build them like the world depends on it, because the world does.
Thank you, Laura. Laura is truly the epitome of resilience. Her perspective, curiosity, and grit really shine through. I'm inspired by Laura's recognition of her own power. She is truly a great example of a woman redefining possibility. Our next speaker, Kruti Goyal Patel, has taken an unexpected path to leading product at Etsy. She started her career as a financial analyst, then headed up strategy and business development for a large media company, and moved on to Red, the brand licensing firm founded by Bono to fight AIDS in Africa. After joining Etsy and taking on a variety of roles, she stepped in as SVP of Product in October 2018 during a major transition in Etsy's business. She is now their Chief Product Officer. Not exactly a straight shot from that economics degree that launched her career, and definitely not a role she originally envisioned for herself. I'll let Kruti share more about her career path and how you might think about finding the next great opportunity for yourself.
Hi, I'm Kruti, the Chief Product Officer at Etsy, and I wanted to tell you about my journey. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Etsy. We are a two-sided marketplace connecting shoppers looking for something special and unique with creative entrepreneurs all over the world. Last year, these businesses sold over $5 billion of goods to over 60 million buyers. So if you haven't shopped on Etsy yet, you should download the app now because you're missing out. So I've been at Etsy for almost 10 years, and I've had lots of different roles here. But I was never a product lead before being asked to head up the entire product team a few years ago. Crazy, right? You might wonder, how did I get here? And it's a good question. On the surface, my career path looks like a pretty non-linear path filled with twists and turns. And it's definitely not what I thought I'd be doing today if you asked me straight out of business school, or even when I started at Etsy. But the thread through my career is that I love building teams and creating products that connect people, and I love solving new problems. And over the years, I've gotten pretty good at these things because I've taken the time to listen and learn, and I've been willing to take some risks along the way. So I graduated from business school back in 2004, and while most of my classmates were going into finance or consulting firms or even big tech, I wanted to find a job at a company that was building something that I was really excited about, somewhere that I could actually be hands-on and run the deals and work directly with operating teams. And after a few roles in media and at a nonprofit, I landed my dream job at Etsy, leading business development in 2011, and I was super excited. This was the early years at Etsy. It was a little Wild West back then. There was occasionally a goat in the office, the desks and the curtains were handmade by employees, there was even a rowboat that people slept in sometimes, and the business was in high growth startup mode, which meant that I showed up to run business development, and almost immediately I was told that instead they wanted me to manage a different team, Trust and Safety, which was a brand new policy enforcement team. And by the way, things were on fire. Our sellers were complaining that the site was flooded with items that didn't meet our handmade policies, and we had a backlog of tens of thousands of flags, or community reports of policy violations that were growing by the day. This was definitely not business development, but frankly, it felt like it was something really key that we needed to understand and solve. making sure the marketplace was a trusted brand so that we could keep growing our business. So I ignored the voice in my head saying, "You don't have any experience doing this," and I embraced the challenge. Over the next year, I talked to our sellers and our enforcement agents, and we built the processes and the internal tools to help us keep the marketplace safe. And it was a huge success. We conquered Flag Mountain. And along the way, I got a great education in how our marketplace worked. I learned Etsy's business by seeing it from the perspective of our customers and how they experience Etsy when things go wrong. And it helped me see how listening to your customers about what they need and watching how they work helps you really build solutions that work for them. After this, I was asked to run our international growth team. I didn't have any international or marketing experience, but I was excited to figure it out. So I hired some amazing people and we got to work localizing the product for our global users. And the most valuable part of this job for me was getting to meet with and talk to so many of our customers all around the world. But it turned out that this job wasn't the right fit. I wasn't a marketing person and I hadn't moved the needle enough on the business. And so when I was 7 months pregnant with twins, the CEO called me into his office to tell me that he was replacing me. And I was crushed. I held it together. And then I walked down out of the office and I cried. I went through all the emotions you might imagine. I was embarrassed, I was angry, I was hurt. And then I went on maternity leave and I replayed it over and over in my head. I thought about leaving Etsy, but I just wasn't ready. I still loved the company and I felt like I had unfinished work to do. So after my wounds healed, both from my C-section and my ego, I came back from maternity leave and I took on a new role as the head of corporate and business development. Remember that job that I was originally hired to do? And guess what? Everything that I had learned about the business and our customers over the last few years made me a lot better at this job. But the company was now in its awkward adolescent phase. We were going through the IPO process and it was rocky in the public markets. Our top line growth was slowing, and after the initial excitement of the IPO, the stock price kept falling. We even had activist investors. It was like being in a bad movie that was getting worse. And then in May 2017, our CEO got up on stage at an emergency all hands and announced to us all that he was stepping down and we were laying off 10% of the company to cut costs. After that, the new CEO took the stage and he shared his vision for turning around the business. We'd focus on growing the core marketplace and stop chasing new businesses. He called it focusing on the vital few versus the worthwhile many. And he was right. He was also asking great questions and listening a lot. He wanted to understand our customer and invest more in what was amazing about Etsy. And I was all in. The next and current phase of Etsy's business has been about unlocking growth. I took on a new role as the GM of the seller side of our business. And at this point, I'd been at Etsy for 5 years in 3 different jobs. And I understood our sellers and our business better than anyone we could hire from the outside. But I was still nervous. When we refocused our efforts on the core marketplace, we sunset a bunch of things. And one of the big decisions we made was to make a change to our seller fees for the first time ever, so we could reinvest more in growth. So now here I found myself with a new CEO, managing a new team, and responsible for one of the biggest changes we had made as a company. No pressure, right? There was a lot of uncertainty about how our sellers would react too, even though we had conviction that this would benefit them in the long term. What if our sellers left in droves? The stakes were really high. But I realized that I knew how to do this, and I'd solved big, hairy problems before. We spent a lot of time testing assumptions, working on messaging, and methodically building confidence that we were launching the right products and the right pricing structure for our sellers. And it was a success. This was definitely the toughest thing I had ever worked on professionally. And ultimately, it was transformative in the turnaround of Etsy. Our sellers were initially upset, but they stuck with us. And they saw us invest in TV ads and roll out better tools, and they watched the marketplace grow. And we were able to begin to re-accelerate growth and to rebuild confidence. Fast forward another year, and this time our CEO called me into his office and asked if I would take all of product on, which at Etsy includes product management, design, and research across the entire customer journey on both sides of the marketplace. This was huge and exciting, but a little scary, because that voice in my head said, "You're a business person, not a product person." So I listened and learned a lot from our product teams, who I'm proud to say are 60% women. And listening to my team, it became clear that the product development process also needed an overhaul. So we invested in retraining everyone on product discovery, in scaling customer research, introducing more rigor around experimentation, and we did this all while we executed our day jobs of growing the business, essentially fixing the engine while flying the plane. We fundamentally changed how we worked while we were on the hook to deliver a lot of growth for our customers as a public company. Doing what we did was a big risk, especially for the new head of product, but it paid off. We've successfully transitioned to a more outcome-driven product development culture. And what I mean by that is that instead of being driven by a product spec and a deadline, our teams have a customer problem to solve and a measurable goal. And then they have the freedom to find the best way to get there based on what they learn from our customers along the way. So our teams feel more empowered, they're more productive, and they're delivering more holistic customer solutions than ever. And I can look back at what we've built, both internally and for our customers, and confidently say, I am a product person. I know that was a long journey, and looking back, there are a few things that I want you all to take away wherever you are in your career journey. First, pick a place to work where you really care about what you're building and the impact that you're having. This is what's kept me at Etsy for so many years. I still love our mission to keep commerce human, and I'm just as excited about the future as when I first arrived here. Second, don't be afraid to try new things. As women, we often feel like we have to have done a job before we're ready for a promotion or to convince ourselves that we're qualified for that new role. Be fearless and be bold. You're not always going to be successful, but sometimes the stretch opportunities and the tough times are where we learn and grow the most. And finally, if you're interested in product, there are lots of paths there. We have amazing product managers who have come from all over the company, from customer support to marketing to design and analytics. The real key is to understand your business and your stakeholders. What do they want? What do they need? What do they love? You can't build a product if you don't know your customers, and there are so many ways to get to know them. I met them as angry sellers flagging non-handmade stuff, and that work gave me deep empathy for the micro-entrepreneurs on our site. And this has allowed me to help lead Etsy through some tough and turbulent years into the thriving marketplace that it is today, still keeping commerce human. Thank you.
Thank you, Kruti. What an amazing story. It's funny how, in retrospect, you can see all the threads that led you in a career direction. Not all paths work out, and setbacks can be painful, but they can also help us focus on the things that matter and move us forward in new, more productive ways. It's great to see how each of these women have taken risks, followed their passions for particular missions, and redefined possibility. Career paths aren't a straight line from A to B to C. There are endless possibilities out there, even when things are difficult. I'd like to thank all of our speakers this morning for sharing their stories and their insights. It's an honor and a privilege to have them here. Before I go, a couple of quick reminders. Don't forget to visit our sponsors in the Sponsor Pavilion. The breakout sessions start at 10 a.m. Pacific time on all 4 stages. Take advantage of our networking opportunities, including the networking mixer. Don't be shy. You're surrounded by people who want to see you thrive. So make sure to connect with others while you're here. Thank you.